Topic 2. What are adverse childhood experiences? ACEs. ACEs, or adverse childhood experiences, are experiences that can impact a person's risk of negative physical and mental health outcomes later in life. Throughout this training, please reference the glossary in the resources section for definitions of important terms. In 1998, a landmark public health study identified 10 adverse childhood experiences occurring before the age of 18 that can raise the risk of negative physical and mental health outcomes later in life. These fall into 3 categories: abuse, neglect, and household dysfunction. Examples of abuse include physical abuse, non-accidental harm like punching or burning; emotional abuse, behaviors interfering with a child's mental health, such as belittling or isolating; and sexual abuse, exploitation or use of a child in inappropriate ways. Moving to neglect, we see physical neglect, failing to meet basic needs or provide supervision; and emotional neglect, not tending to a child's emotional needs. And under household dysfunction, mental illness, living with a relative struggling with mental health; incarcerated relative, dealing with parental imprisonment; mother treated violently, witnessing violence towards a primary caregiver; substance use, dealing with a parental addiction and its ramifications; and finally, divorce, navigating the complexities and emotions of separated parents. In this lesson, we took an initial look at the idea of trauma, breaking it down into 3 components: the events that trigger trauma, the personal experience of these events, and the effects, which are not merely symptoms, but how we adapt to the trauma experienced. And we explored adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, which identifies 10 types of adverse experiences that significantly increase the risk for negative outcomes in physical and mental health. Now, let's dive into what we'll cover in upcoming lessons. First, we'll explore the different kinds of stress and how toxic stress can impact the brain. Next, we'll dive deeper into toxic stress's impact on behavior and explore various techniques to help children manage stress responses. Then, we'll discuss the strategies for supporting young people in healing from trauma and building safe environments. We'll learn how youth workers can support children through stable relationships, creative arts, and practical common care plans. We'll address the significant yet often overlooked issue of vicarious trauma among youth workers and how to protect ourselves from its effects. We'll see how organizations that adopt trauma-informed practices fundamentally change their approach to client interaction and internal culture. Then, we'll take an extensive look at the complex interactions between community environments and individual traumatic experiences, particularly within racially and socioeconomically marginalized populations. Finally, we'll understand how trauma is transmitted across generations and influenced by environmental factors. Please scroll down below to complete this lesson's learner engagement activity.